Welcome, photographers. That's right, I called you photographers. Welcome, everybody. How's it going? Today we're going to start photography. We're going to do just one video this week for both media arts and intro to video. And the reason for that is twofold. One, I keep posting the wrong videos, and I'm sorry about that. Just kidding. That's not why we're doing one. We're doing one because we're all going to be starting photography at the same time. So media arts students have been learning a lot of things about graphic design and organizing files, but now you're going to jump into photography, and intro to video students have been working on videos, and we're going to take a little break from making videos, focus on photography. There's so much overlap between the two different disciplines, and we're going to get into a lot of composition and how to frame a shot, which is going to be applied to both video and photography. So I think we'll be in good shape for both of them. So yeah, let's jump right into today's lesson. And as you saw there, that was me in front of the view you get from Pitik Mansion. This is a picture that I took, I can't remember when, but not too long ago. And it's a great spot where I like to go and take pictures. Hopefully you can find some great spots where you like to take pictures that are interesting. Now that the weather's getting nicer, there's some great places to go, whether it's the cherry blossoms downtown. If you go quickly, they might still be around. I know I went right after spring break, and it was pretty fantastic. But really just anywhere as the flowers are coming out, as the ducks are out swimming, just get out and take pictures. And that's what the next couple weeks are going to be about as we learn about photography. So this week's goals, it is somewhere between April 5th and April 9th. So first off, you are going to learn how to take photos with whatever device you will be using. So maybe you're going to be using a cell phone. That's totally fine, right? I use a cell phone for lots of my pictures. Maybe you'll be using a camera with manual settings, such as this one, right? This is a mirrorless camera, but a DSLR operates the same way. They've got cameras that have lenses that you can take off and use different lenses for different situations. By the way, if any of you are going to be using a camera like this, that you has some manual controls and things like that, please come to office hours so that we can have a little workshop on how to get the most out of your camera. I really enjoy teaching manual settings of cameras, and I need you to come to me with your camera in order for me to be able to do that. So please stop by anytime to do that. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to learn about the rule of thirds. We're going to turn on grid lines on our camera. So the rule of thirds is something you definitely should know about if you're an intro to video and you've taken my classes in the past. But if not, everyone's going to learn this rule, and it is a rule that I follow almost all the time. Very important in photography, very important in video. So we're going to learn that today. And even if you already know it, you're going to keep practicing it because it's super important. All right. You are also going to take pictures during the golden hour, if at all possible. Now, I'll explain what the golden hour is a little later in this video. Very important, though, that you learn about this time of the day to take pictures because you really get your best shots at that time of the day. And then lastly, you're going to upload your photos to Google Photos, and you're going to make an album. So that's one way we're going to be able to share pictures. We'll probably even start an album, if not this week, next week, where we're just going to put pictures that the whole class can see and work on together. So yeah, very important for doing that. So let's get started. First off, let's talk about how you're going to focus on a subject. So there are different devices you might be using. And if you're taking a cell phone for your pictures and you want to take a picture of something, what you need to do is you need to tap on the screen. I think that light's not going to work very well for doing this. Maybe you can still see it there, right? If I tap on the screen, it's going to focus. And when I take that picture here, I'll take this picture, see if that turned out okay. Ooh, kind of interesting focus that I was able to get with the cell phone. But it's really important to tap to where to focus. Please don't just let your camera choose where to focus, because just like in this video right now, I'm choosing to have the camera focus on my face and not on my background. You want to think about the same thing. And with a cell phone, you don't have lots of options, but when you're close to an object and you tap on it, you're going to notice some things about focus. So that's really important. Also, you can adjust your exposure on a smartphone. When I go to take a picture, if I'm taking a picture of something really bright, like my screen, for example, I can tap and hold on the screen, and then I can drag down, and I'm adjusting my exposure so I can make it a little darker. so it's not going to be so washed out. But you can adjust exposure. That's something that you can play around with as well. And then you're going to be able to put these photos in Google Photos, and then you're going to be able to make some edits to them anyways. We're not going to worry too much about edits today, but something that you can be thinking about. So that's how you're going to focus with your cell phones. If you're using a camera such as a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you're going to make sure that the camera is in one of the modes that you've probably never used before, right? Such as P or AV or TV or M. If you're using a Nikon or a Sony, it may be a little bit different, and I can help you figure out what all those things are, but they generally do the same things. And what you're going to do is you're going to press the shutter button, which is this button on the front here, and you're going to press it halfway down, okay? Usually you'll hear a little beep. I have the beep turned off on my camera, right? And the reason why I do that is because every time I go and hold it halfway down, my dogs hear the beep or something and it kind of freaks them out. So I like to turn the beep off, but generally by default, your camera will beep when it's focusing. And that is a really easy way to do that. There are different ways to control different focus points depending on your camera. Like on a mirrorless, I can just touch and drag anywhere on the back screen to do that. On a DSLR, there's generally fixed points, but you can use a joystick or you can press a button and move it around. So experiment with how you can focus on things. And like I said, I will demonstrate how to do this in office hours for anyone, but we're going to be using lots of different cameras. So whatever you're using, I'd be happy to show you on how to do that. So, all right. Now that we know a little bit about focusing, because you want to make sure you're focused on something, got to stay focused in this class, we're going to talk about taking some pictures. And the first thing you want to do is you want to turn on your grid lines. So I've got grid lines turned on both my phone and on a DSLR camera here. And if you go into the settings of your phone, mine's in an iPhone, but it's very similar on an Android device or a Google Pixel or something like that. Somewhere in settings, it generally says grid lines or framing, and you're going to turn that on. I like to have a 3x3 grid because it helps demonstrate the rule of thirds, as you're going to learn in a little bit. It can also make sure your shots are level, so you can look at that. And then also here's a picture that I took of the back of a camera, and you can see you're going to see a lot more information when you're looking through a DSLR, but I can still have those grid lines turned on when I look at it. So go ahead and try and get those turned on for your pictures this week. Now, let's say you're taking pictures with your Chromebook. There's not really a good way to turn on the grid lines, but you can still visualize where those lines would be. So just imagine the grid lines that you're going to see over and over again through this lesson as we talk about the rule of thirds. Okay, so before we get into the rule, though, let's talk about the parts of a photo. All right, so here's a picture of a heron, right? Very fitting that it is our mascot, that I took in Selwood at Eastmoreland Park. And as you look at this picture, right, you can think, okay, this is a picture of a heron, right? So that's going to be the subject of our photo, right? And then the subject is the main part of the photo, but then you often have a foreground and background because you can't just have very rarely do you have just a subject all by itself. Foreground are elements that are in the front of your image, right? Such as the flowers in the glass, the flowers, the grass, the reflection of the water. And then the background is the vegetation in the water as well. And you see that there's some depth to this picture. Even though it's a picture that was taken from maybe 100 yards away, you can still kind of picture that front to back range in a photo. And that's part of what makes a photo look great, is if you can create some depth. So we're going to talk about creating depth in your photos, and we'll see. And then also I'm going to be talking about what's called the frame. That's the entire area of the photo, right? So the whole frame, when I say filling the frame, think about everything that you see in that viewfinder, everything that you would see in the photo as you describe your frame and how you want to think about composing different things. All right. Very important for this class to keep your camera level when you're taking pictures, okay? I know that sometimes it's a bit of a trend to have pictures that are askew. For this class, please focus on trying taking level pictures, and one easy way to do that is to turn on the grid lines of your camera and then line up a grid line with a line in your camera, or a line in the picture that should be straight. Horizons are mostly straight, and so you can use a horizon line to line up with your grid lines to make sure that your picture looks nice and level. So if you're taking a picture of the sunset at the beach, right, you're able to use that line to help you. You can do the same thing with a building, because we know buildings are supposed to be straight up and down if you're looking at them from straight on. But you can generally look for straight lines that should be that way. If you're taking a picture of a person and they're standing up, generally people stand up fairly straight, so you can use those lines there as well. But use grid lines to help you keep your images level. All right, let's talk about the rule of thirds. This is very important stuff, important rules. All right, so I want you to imagine a 3x3 grid, right, with 9 boxes over top of this picture, just like a tic-tac-toe board. And I want you to think about what elements are at the intersection points and along the lines, right? So if you were to draw that frame, let's see if you imagine it looking like this. There it is, right? In 9 equal frames, we're really breaking this down into smaller portions. And you can see that the lamppost and the lamp are definitely what's important in the photo for some intersection points. You'll also notice that the horizon line, it's actually a mountain line. This is sunrise at Rocky Butte looking north towards the Cascade Mountains. And the sun is coming up in the east. And so the mountain line kind of goes along the bottom third line as well. And so even when you first looked at this picture, it probably just looked, hey, why is this picture off center? But really I'm using the rule of thirds to kind of set all this up and kind of helps create a little depth and perspective in the shot. And you'll see this with a lot of other pictures, right? Here's another one, right? Imagine where that line is, right? The 2 people are at the intersecting point and the horizon is another line. So breaking a frame down is a nice way of taking a picture that might have a lot of things in it, but then each one is kind of has its own characteristics to it. Sometimes you'll take a picture of a beautiful landscape and it won't be that interesting because it's not focused on any object, right? But by using the rule, you can draw attention to those intersection points, right? And there doesn't have to be a lot of action going on, but kind of using it to guide your compositions will help you take cool looking pictures. All right, so the rule of thirds is a rule of thumb or guideline which applies to the process of composing visual images such as designs, films, paintings, and photographs. That's right. During the Renaissance, painters realized that if you don't center your subject, but you put them off to one of the sides of the frame, it's going to look like there's more motion in an image. So they're just painting pictures of people hanging out in their kitchen or whatever, and now they're making their pictures come to life. And if you look at paintings from this era, from about 500 years ago, there was a big leap in art. And part of it was that they started using this rule that was kind of interesting. Not that they didn't use it before, but it became a popular rule. And then now it's really applied into film. So you'll notice this while watching videos. If you look at any photographs, you'll almost always see this rule used or broken in a perfect way with symmetry. Right, you'll see that sometimes in photos too. So usually it's going to be one or the other. It's either completely symmetrical or very close to the rule of thirds. So we're going to try taking some pictures like this. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to put the horizon on one of the horizontal lines, right, if you have a horizon in your shot. And then you're going to frame the foreground of your subject on one of the vertical lines, right? So think about how that could look as you take a picture. So try and take a picture looking off into the distance or where a road ends and then you see a hillside behind it. Try and put the end of that road right at that bottom third line, right? Maybe if you've got a house in the shot also, maybe try and have as much sky across the top as those 3 top boxes are. So think about as you take a picture of something that way, how you can use that. All right, we're going to travel back in time. I made this video last spring. And so if you start at 44 seconds in, which we're going to right now, you will see how I use the rule of thirds to take pictures of none other than. So let's travel back in time. Do-do-do, do-do-do-do. Learn how to take better pictures and videos with your cell phone. So today I'm going to demonstrate a couple of different things. If you're a hair and TV or a photography student, some of this might be review for you, but we haven't really taught it from a cell phone perspective before, so this still might be valuable for you. And that might be the tool that you're using for this project anyway. So to demonstrate the principles I'm going to talk about today, we're going to use a model that you guys will recognize, none other than Mr. Bob Ross. So welcome Mr. Bob Ross to the show, everyone. Yeah, he's hard to get in focus because he's so small, but there he is. I'm going to take pictures of Bob with my cell phone, and I'm going to show you a couple different things. So the biggest thing I like to think about when I'm taking a photo is how can I make it look like there's motion in that photo, even if it's completely still. And so since Bob's going to be completely still here, I'm still going to be able to use a couple techniques that are going to make it work. All right. The other day we also talked about our grid lines. We use Gridlines for a variety of reasons, one of which is to keep photos level, but another is to help us with a rule called the rule of thirds. So today I'm going to teach you two main principles of composition in your photography. One is the rule of thirds, and the other is to create depth in your photos. So I'm going to demonstrate a couple different pictures. So let's go put Bob in a couple different locations and we can see how depth is created and how depth isn't created. So let's do a couple different things. We're gonna try that. Okay. All right, so this first one is going to be an example that I see happen all the time, is that people put subjects up against walls and completely eliminate all sorts of depth. So Bob is set up over on the wall over there, and I'm going to show you how we lose depth completely in a photo when we do that. So I'm going to bring the camera in a little bit closer. All right, so here we are with Bob on my fence, and I'm going to show you how what looks like it might be a great shot isn't really going to turn out so well. So I'm going to probably cut over to my cell phone as I edit this together, and you'll see what that looks like. All right, so first off, hopefully you guys have the grid lines turned on like the other day, and I'm just going to put Bob right in the middle of my frame and take a picture of him, and I'm going to show you how there's not a lot of depth. So I'm going to tap on the screen in order to focus. I'm going to put him right there in the middle. I'm going to take the picture. So not a bad picture, but there's a couple things we can do to improve this. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to show you how we can use the rule of thirds. So all I need to do in order to use those rule of thirds is I'm going to use my grid lines, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Bob, instead of in the center, I'm going to try and have his head intersect on the two lines. So if I just kind of have him right there, now all of a sudden Bob kind of off to the side in the frame, and it adds a little bit more interest. Now, even more so how this works is if he was turned looking this way, it would make more sense to have him looking into the open space on the frame. So let's try that again. Now if I take a picture of Bob with him looking over, slightly offside, and now I have just demonstrated a basic principle of the rule of thirds. So now all of a sudden, even though he's a completely still inanimate object, it looks like there's a little bit of motion because it looks like he's actually looking at something. But in both of these photos, I haven't really created depth, and the reason is he is right next to the wall. So in order to create some depth, what you want to do is put spacing between your subject and their background. So let's find a new location for Bob, create a little bit of depth, and see if it looks a little better. All right, for this next example, I'm going to be down at Bob's level, and I'm trying to create a background that's interesting, that has a little bit of depth. So some of the blades of grass behind Bob here are going to be fairly close, but the ones that are further away are going to fall off out of focus, and it should look fairly pleasing. So let's see what happens here. We're now going to get Bob here. Using that same rule, you can see he's lined up on the grid lines there. I'm going to tap on him to focus. And when I take that picture, should be a little bit more interesting of a photo. That took a ton of photos. I'm not sure what happened. Why am I in some crazy mode? Let's try that again. Let me just go into HDR. Take that picture again. And now you can see that's going to be a more interesting picture of Bob because there's some depth to him. As we look at this photo, you can see there's elements of the background, but they're falling out of focus, and the grass makes for a more pleasing background. So just by thinking about what your background is and creating a little bit of depth from that, you'll make it look far more interesting. Okay, so there you have it. Just two really basic things, right? Add some depth to your photos. Separate that background from your subject. It's going to look a little more interesting. And try framing things using the rule of thirds. So just get your subject right. Instead of being right in the center of the frame like I am here, just step off to the side and have him open to the open part of the frame. Either way, it works really well when you're looking at photos. Applies to videos too. So let me try a couple more shots around the room, around my backyard, just taking pictures of Bob. So you can try the same thing. Set up an action figure they don't move, which is great. But if you've got really cute pets or they're trained well, that works awesome too. So try different things. We're gonna work on getting some depth in our photos, and we're gonna work on framing using the rule of thirds. So two basic things that you can try. When I'm taking pictures with my phone, I am using what's called the HDR, or high dynamic range. What that does is it actually takes a series of photos and combines them so that you get the best examples of light. When you're using a really small sensor inside a cell phone, you really need that kind of dynamic range to help you with it to make the photo turn out great. If you're using a DSLR, you can think about some other features that we'll get into later. But for now, if you have the HDR option, I would just leave it turned on. You're still gonna be able to edit that photo and make adjustments to it, but it gives you the best sort of data to work with to get your photo started. So let's look at a couple shots of Bob around the yard. All right, so there you have it. That was the rule of thirds in my backyard. Look at all that depth that I'm able to create in some of those photos just with basic composition tricks. So I want you to try some of these. You're going to take some rule of thirds pictures. All right, I'm going to skip over this though. I don't need that. Don't play again. Moving right along. All right, so when you take a picture, ask yourself, what is this picture about? What is my subject? And then how can you use the rule of thirds to make it work? So, right, I think of the subject of this photo is the water fountain. This is a Benson bubbler downtown. And if we look at where that's framed, right, where the water's coming out as an intersection point and where the fountain is. All right, here's a picture of the Pantheon in Rome that I took. I had to lay down on the ground to take this picture, and I looked up, and I really like this picture. When I look at it now, I took this picture 5 years ago, and I think I've grown a lot as a photographer. I would have probably changed some things as far as the lighting in it, but the composition, I was very into doing this as a rule of thirds picture because there's my two intersection points, right, where the light's coming through and where the light's shining onto the ceiling of the building there. All right, here's a landscape shot that really follows the rule nicely. See what I was talking about with a horizon line being on a third line? So the sky isn't really all that interesting. It's the foreground that's interesting. So I chose that line to do that. And then as far as intersection points, you know, like you can see the tree occupies one side, the stream traveling from one section to another. So go around and play around with a landscape photo if you can. Even if it's just walking out and taking a picture, looking down the road. If you can, maybe get out with your folks and go and take some pictures where you've got a nice big view. That would be an awesome way to do this. There's some cool places to do this. In fact, there's a park that some of you might live nearby. It's off of Johnson Creek Boulevard in Clackamas, and it has a view of downtown. That would be a great place to try and take some landscape pictures because you can see the buildings off in the distance, and you could try and use the rule as you're composing your shots. All right, here's one of the Peter Iredale. This is a shipwreck in Fort Stevens, right, out at the Oregon coast. And this actually doesn't really follow the rule completely, but the idea of having the ship off-center for some intersection points. I thought both the sky and the water were interesting, so I chose to just put it right there in the middle. And sometimes when you're taking a picture with water in the horizon, it's nice to split it right down the middle and kind of not follow that rule, but Just an idea for you. All right, here's some pictures of my kids from a couple years ago, and they have grown up so much since this picture, but love this picture. And you can see it is a rule of thirds picture, how we sort two people in the frame so that it works together. Right? From Herring TV, two hosts. Right? We haven't had two hosts together in so long since the social distancing, but trust me, this is what it used to look like. They sit at the desk. Hey, that's the same microphone that I'm using in that picture. How about that? Just on a new fancy stand. All right. Any rate, rule of thirds. And have a couple videos here that you can check out. If you want Chris Pratt to show you more about the rule of thirds, you can. This is from Jurassic Park as he's taming a velociraptor, right? Using the rule of thirds. There's another great video there too. So go ahead and check these out if that's something you're interested in. All right. Now let's talk about the golden hour, right? The golden hour. It's the time just after sunrise and just before sunset when the light has a golden hue that is ideal for photography, right? All four of these pictures were taken at golden hour, and you just don't get this light at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, right? It is, what time is it now? It's 2:20, so I'm in office hours right now. No one stopped by and had a cameo for this this video. That's okay, though. But, yeah, all these pictures were taken, right? These three, the tree, the lamp, and the Columbia River here, are all sunrise pictures. I love taking pictures at sunrise. I don't always love getting up early to take those pictures, but it's kind of nice when you're out there. And you can get some amazing shots in Oregon at sunrise. And then here's a nice sunset at the beach shot too. So try and shoot at the magic hour, so the golden hour. I want to see if everyone can try and do one picture. So over the week, if you're up early or you're up at sunset, try and take some pictures at that hour and then compare them to what might happen if you take a picture in full sun and see the difference, right? There's something magical about this hour. Hey, it must be time for the secret word. Let's go learn it. Take a break and go to our secret word. Hey everybody, I hope you're enjoying this week's video. We need to do a secret word. So the secret word is, wait, what's happening? I guess the secret word is glitch. Glitch. Glitch is the secret word. Stop that. That's better. All right. You like that secret word? It was a good one. It sure was. Don't forget to take the quiz. Right? And I can't put the wrong video here because it's the same video for Media Arts and Intro to Video. All right, getting to our last part of our lesson, we're going to talk about Google Photos. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use Google Photos to store some pictures that we take. We're going to create albums and we're going to share them with the class. Right now, we don't need to share the album with the class. You're just going to share it with me. But what I want you to do is get some pictures on your computer or Chromebook using Google Photos. So you've seen the waffle many times before. When you click on it, the little 9 squares here, and choose Google Photos, you'll get to the Google Photos page, and you're going to be able to do that. Now, how you get your pictures to your computer is up to you. If you're using a phone and a Mac, I use AirDrop. I think that's really convenient. If you're using a cell phone and a Chromebook or a PC, you can use the Lightning cable with a USB and connect to it, and then you can see your files that way. When you go in and you go to upload out of Google Photos, you can search your device and you can find it listed there. So there are a number of ways to do that. See what works best for you for getting your pictures to your computer. Whatever you end up doing, make sure you get a system that works for you, because it's really important that you get your pictures copied to your computer for this class. Just having it on your phone is not really going to help. All right, so here's how you upload a photo. Right, you go to that little button that says upload, and then you would choose upload from computer, and then you can see these are pictures that are on my desktop. It has my desktop selected. I could choose them that way. And then once you've done that, it'll start uploading. It'll say 1 of 1. And then once it's finished, and it'll say that. And then you can choose add to album or shared album. You can create a new album. Make an album for this class, please, if you haven't done so already. If you're an Intro to Video student and you already made an album, just add to that same album. You don't even need to give it a new name. But I called mine Mr. Oliver Shots. Please call your album like your name and pictures or shots or great shots or whatever. You be creative, but give it a name that fits. And then you're going to make that and you're going to put some pictures in it. I want to see some rule of thirds pictures and a golden hour picture if you get a chance to do that. So really simple assignment this week. Just take some photos. You don't have to hand in the photos. You're just going to hand in your link. That's pretty easy. So you're just going to attach a link in the comments, and then I'll be able to look at your pictures. All right. So when you make that album, you're going to create new album. If this is your first time, you're going to call it Your Name Shots, and then you're going to add some pictures to it. So I have a couple pictures here. You'll be able to see that. And that's it. So real simply, you're going to do that. So let me walk you through step by step on how to use Google Photos. So you're going to go click on that waffle. And you're going to select Photos. And when you do, you'll have a bunch of albums if you've created them before. If you've never seen them at all, that's okay. If it's asking you for the very first time, do you want to be in high definition or full definition, choose the maximum quality you can. You get 10 gigabytes of free pictures. So let's go ahead and use that until it maxes out. So try and select whatever is the full quality so that it doesn't trim your pictures down. It's confusing. I know when it says full, or when it says high definition, you think, oh, well, that's amazing. Well, actually, your pictures are probably like 3 times the size of that for your best looking shot. So, all right, so here's what you're going to do. You are going to make an album. So you come to Albums, and then you're going to hit Create Album. And you would call this Mr. O's Pictures or Shots, right? I already have one called Shots. And then it says album is empty, so I'm going to add some photos. Couple different ways I can do that. If I already have them copied to my computer, I can say select from my computer. I can go to desktop. I could find a picture that I have. What is this a picture of? Yes, look at that dude. I'm glad he's in there. Not that you want to add pictures that are just from the internet onto here. This just happened to be on the desktop of my computer. And so there's my picture. That's how you add to an album. I can also add more by coming up to this button here. And I can say add photos. I could also do select from computer. If I had a memory card attached, which I can't right now because my memory card is using in the camera that I'm recording from, it would show up as an option here, and then I could find those pictures for adding it. If I already had the picture in Google Photos, so once you copy it once, I can add other pictures too. So I could do, I could just choose this picture that I took, right? I could choose, what's another picture I took? I took this picture, and I took this picture. I took more than that, but I want to show just those. I would hit done, and now I've got multiple pictures in my album, right? So this is how we can store them all together. It just looks nicer this way in an album. It's a nice way to view them. You can then go in and you can share that album. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a link for the album, right? Create link to share, and it's going to let anyone see the photos and people in this album. Yeah, sure, create link. There we go. And now I can copy this link, right? If I click on it, it just goes to the album. If I want to share this, right, I could come to here, copy link, and then hit copy. And then I now have it copied to my clipboard. And I'm just going to paste this into my Google Classroom for the assignment. So all you have to do, put a comment with this link and then hit submit on there. And then I will be able to see your albums that way. Hey, hold up, Mr. Oliver. I think you need to explain that a little more clearly. So what you're going to do is in Google Classroom on this week's assignment, you're going to hit add or create, and then you're going to choose link. Go ahead and copy the link from your Google Photos album to this assignment and then press turn in. That's how you're going to get a score this week. All right, back to the video that way. So that's your job for this week. And yeah, let's go wrap things up. So wrapping things up. This week, you're going to learn how to take photos with whatever camera you're using, whether it's a cell phone, a DSLR, a mirrorless, right? You're going to learn, you've learned that rule of thirds. Now I want you to practice it, right? You can always get better. I practice this all the time too, even though I've been taking pictures for a long time. Still think about the rule of thirds all the time. You're going to take some pictures during golden hour, if at all possible. Please do. It's a great time to take pictures. It's a great advantage of having this class done online is that we have a little more freedom. We don't have golden hour while we're at school, except for in the wintertime during first period, and we hardly have it then. And lastly, you are going to upload those photos to Google Photos. You're going to make an album, put a couple of pictures in it. Want to see that golden hour photo and some rule of thirds photos, and then share it with me. So put that link in there. That's it. I want you guys to get outside, take some beautiful pictures in this beautiful weather they're having. The spring is a great time to be learning photography, so hopefully this gets you excited about getting out and taking pictures. So you can take pictures indoors if you need to, but if you can get outside, nothing beats natural light for photos. So, all right, so that's it for this lesson. Never stop creating, and I'll see you in the next video. All right, so happy shooting. Let's go take some pictures.